these people on the extreme either ends that I guess you're trying to reach, the people who are way out there, are you getting what you need from here to reach out to those people, the jihadists, the terrorists, whoever, on the extreme end of society there in Saudi Arabia? Are you getting what you need from here to be able to reach them and say, look, understand it this way?
I mean, who are these guys? I don't know them.
But the guys, they've been rounded up.
Yeah, but I'm saying,
I'm
saying is that what's their frame of mind? I have no idea. What we're trying to do is we're trying to get the picture across. Listen, the U.S. is about a lot of things. It's not about one direction. People in the street don't, if you walk up to someone, whether it's on camera or not, they don't hate Islam. They don't hate Muslims. They just, sometimes they're lied to, and they actually say it. So portraying that idea that there are people who are sympathizing with Muslims around the world, oppression around the world, whether it's Muslims or not, I think it just gets the point across that the American population is a fair-minded people. So don't treat them all as one. Just try to think about what you're doing.
Is this a groundbreaking concept for Saudi Arabia right now?
I think it's not groundbreaking. It's just that people, because of their emotions, kind of forget about it.
But in certain class segments, it is. I mean, there's people that have not been exposed. Saudi Arabia, there are areas in Saudi Arabia that are incredibly provincial, and people don't meet with people of other religions or other race groups. So the television is one way to break that down. A lot of Arabs now are just feeling they're not telling our side of the story,
and that's why they look for the alternative. And unfortunately, the alternative
is often very biased.
So when we turn up, I think people are inherently polite, and when we turn up, that's not something that ever we feel that people are treating us in any way negatively.
They won't, but definitely there is a general consensus in the Arab world that Western journalism is biased. It doesn't help the point of view of Muslims or Arabs, and that's why they when they look for an alternative, they look for the extreme, something that is totally biased against the West. And what we're trying to do here, our objective is give them that balance. That you don't have to go left or right. You can have something in the middle.
Well, also the irony of it is that for instance, Abu Ghraib, which was a disaster for public relations. On the other hand, it came out, and it's going through the process. And the American system of looking at these things bluntly and frankly, the process is happening. That doesn't really happen on the Arab side. So people here will often say, well, hey, look, we made a mistake, but we're dealing with it. In the Arab world, you guys make mistakes all the time. Saddam Hussein, Abu Ghraib was a prison. They were torturing people there for 30 years, and nobody ever saw pictures. Nobody ever heard anything about it. So, it's deep, and there's a lot of problems because on the one hand, Arabs want to see people, no, tell the whole story. We feel it's piecemeal. On the other hand, people in the West are saying these people are in total denial.
Don't you think time, though, is helping ameliorate some of that and change some of the anxiety, the anger, etc., that was generated September 11th,
yeah,
etc.?
The Arabs have a proverb. They say, beware the anger of a patient man.
You have a lot of proverbs. And they're very helpful.
So that's, I mean, America is, my estimation of this country went up immensely after 9/11 because we met with the Saudi imam at the mosque in Washington. He said the day after 9/11, the entire courtyard was filled with flowers. And that's where I think a lot of the capital that we had has been lost on both sides. I mean, I really feel that. I feel like that in the Arab world we've lost a lot of capital, and here in the West, and now it's trying to regroup and really to gain some of that back on both sides.
Because emotions are calming down.
That's why my biggest fear is events. I mean, these are the things. This plane that's gone down in Russia. Two planes down. I mean, these type things.
But you can't be, you can't be put off by events. You've just got to carry on and do what you think is right.
Well, that's. But my point is that those people out there that are doing that, they have to recognize and see what they're doing. They're destroying a potential for goodwill. I mean, I can honestly say, as a student of history, for the first time in our long history, the Muslims and the West, for the first time, the West is genuinely open to deep relations and to destroy that incredible opportunity.
Well, Saudi Arabia seems to be definitely opening more right now to let journalists like us in.
Well, that's the irony.
Really tell the
That's
story.
why I'm saying there are things that are happening. There are a lot of changes.
Yeah, no, I would agree that things are happening. I mean, your program, other programs, what's being talked about in the newspapers, what people tell us. No, that things are happening, for sure, absolutely. But I think the fact that the government wants to open up and let journalists in and give them more freedom than they've had in the past to talk to people and meet with people, that's a difference. That's helping extend this message. But I think one of the things when I was saying people are cautious when we come and they deal with us, they have a cautious about where we're coming from and what our
Well, it's a culture too.
Yeah, and we respect that. And
Yeah, I mean, people are usually they're closed. I mean, we are. What is the word you use? Provincial.
Do you think the government in Saudi Arabia is in denial about its need to reform and the speed that it needs to reform at to kind of match the population growth, to match the sort of economic needs of a lot of people?
I don't think it's denial.
Yeah.
It's challenges.
I've seen profound changes. In the last 3 years in Saudi Arabia, personally, I have seen profound changes. And we forget here that they're victims of massive terrorist attacks there. They're seeing it. You know, my own teacher, Shaykh Hamza said in Jeddah, he was at a conference in Riyadh, and they were talking about terrorism, and they were all talking about the West. And he got up and he said, you're talking about the West. The problem's the West doing what they're doing to us. We have a problem right now in the minds of the youth outside. And we could be at any time victims of that mindset. Within an hour, that explosion occurred in Riyadh just to drive his point home. So there are voices that are coming out. And I am optimistic about it, but you know,
I'd love to have met with him while I was there.
He's such a brilliant, he speaks fluent French, but unfortunately...
Well, my French is barely passable. From what you've seen, do you think, because you know the United States so well before September 11th, do you think the relationship between Saudi Arabia and the United States, I guess at a people-to-people level, because that's what you're looking at, do you think it's kind of damaged goods now, or is it repairable? Do the countries still have a future close together?
It's not damaged goods, but it definitely got affected. I mean, it's not the same thing. I remember I was here during the Gulf War #1. I mean, people were rallying behind Saudis. You know, they're the support. They're our allies. They're our friends. You don't see that now. I mean, there is definitely a problem. There is a damage, but I don't think it's damaged good. It's more of what we're doing, more of opening up from both sides and trying to understand and empathize with the other. I think it can go back to normal. And the will. I mean, if you don't have the will to do that, forget it. It's not going to happen.
One major thing that I think Americans don't understand is that Saudi Arabians have been allies to this country for over 50 years. They took incredible flack in the Arab world during the 60s and 70s when there was a lot of socialism, a lot of Marxist and leftist ideologies. They stood by this country under immense pressure. And I think what a lot of Saudis felt in the last few years is we bent over backwards to be your friends, and now why are you just turning on us like this? You know, I think, I mean, isn't that a fair assessment? I think it was very devastating for them because they're, you know, in the Arab tradition, if you're a loyal friend, you expect loyalty from the other side. And
especially during bad times.
Yeah, that's
where you see your real friends.
So I think that really had, unfortunately, a devastating impact.
So what should the U.S. be doing for Saudi right now?
I have it in one word: empathize. Really.
November of 2001, President Bush issues what's called Military Order Number 1. And that was, I remember having a reaction in this room with my office. We were stunned. Here, all of a sudden, it's 2 months after 9/11, and he's essentially taking over the country from a military standpoint. He's saying, I have the right to detain any non-citizen anywhere in the world. Without evidence, and they get no hearings, and I can put them in front of military commissions if I want.
Is this unprecedented in our history? I mean, we had the Alien and Seditions Act. But I mean, is this, you know, Lincoln suspended the writ of habeas corpus, and McKinley also.
There's some history to treating non-citizens.
But it's pretty shocking that it's happening
today.
Because
we figured after the Japanese internment camps, that the country would have learned a lesson. This is 60 years later. Plus, it's 60 years later where there's been a huge evolution in human rights law. There's Geneva Conventions, there's all kinds of things about arbitrary detention. You can't just put people in jail, you have to give them a hearing. There's all kinds of stuff.
Well, I mean, it's interesting. Guantanamo Bay is a major focus of your work right now, isn't it?
Oh, Guantanamo Bay is, we started with these few cases. You'd asked me how many cases. I started with David Hicks, January 2002.
All right.
No one in the legal community, political community, joined us at all. We added to him Habib, Australian, and then we added the Tipton people from England and some others. And now, some of those people have been released, but it's interesting, well, some of the English have been released.
A Canadian as well.
Right, a Canadian, some others. Pakistanis have put a lot of pressure to get their people out.
Right.
Pakistan had a mission there almost 2 years ago, August, in which it said of the 58 Pakistanis, we think 53 had nothing to do with anything.
At all.
Nothing. And now, they're finally going to get some of those released. We probably represent, with other law firms now, who finally, big law firms have joined us to represent people, over 100 Muslim people in Guantanamo right now.
You're representing.
But our contact with them, of course,
is limited. Almost non-existent.
We represent their families. In fact, we sent a mission. One of my lawyers went to Qatar recently to organize Middle East clients. We went to Bahrain.
Do you have any Saudi do you represent any Saudi clients?
Here's the situation with the Saudis is there's 100 and some Saudis, and there's a law firm here that we're starting to work with that we're going to probably be filing on behalf of the Saudis, but that has not happened yet. They're all really. There's a law firm that I think is possibly a Saudi Arabian law firm that is.
Mike, can I ask you, what's driving you?
Well, I think two things are driving me. One is I think when I saw this unfold. And I saw the administration not even being Republican or Democrat, but being something else and challenging really the fundamental aspects of what I consider to be bottom line bedrock laws, the idea particularly of executive detention, that the executive or the king or the president can simply designate whoever he wants. Right. I went back to before the Magna Carta, which is our founding document from an English-American tradition, and I went back to the Inquisitions. And not only Inquisitions in terms of who they picked up, but in terms of the techniques then that were applied to people. So that's one thing that's driving me. But interesting, when I saw the play last night, I realized, and I knew this anyway, but the other thing that drives me was, well, there are two other factors. One is a parent's love for his or her child. And I've met a lot of the Muslim fathers here and the mothers, and I see, they're just broken people from this. This is not even a regular going to trial in a prison. This is 2.5 years of some of them not knowing anything. Never hear.
It's like torture.
Azmat Beg has not heard from his son in almost a year.
It's emotional torture, basically.
And so to see, and I have children, and I identify that with that tremendously, and I identify with people also being in a total dead-end situation. This is not a regular prison we're talking about. This is a place where these people have no idea if they're ever getting out, where they get arbitrarily put in isolation. And I've always had a huge sympathy for the underdog. That's the other thing, and for government oppression. I've just been angered by government oppression. Probably by my family, and
there's an interesting verse in the Quran that says, لولا دفع الله الناس بعضهم ببعض لفسدت الأرض. Had it not been for some people defending other peoples, there would be nothing but corruption in the earth. And it's there's that balance constantly. You've got the wrongs, but then you've got those people that are, something inside of them is inspiring them to redress the wrongs. And it seems, I feel very fortunate to have people like you. That's why we wanted to come here and visit you, because in essence, you're really, you're in an unpopular position, because I think some people, maybe a considerable number in this country, say, this guy, why is he defending these terrorists, or why is he defending these, these people? And the
amount of hate mail we got in the beginning, and I still got a couple letters the other day, but was extraordinary. Why don't you go guard the people in Guantanamo and let them kill you? Invite the Taliban to your house and let them eat your children. Stuff that was so,
ignorant.
Ignorant, exactly.
But I'm sure there was a lot of support as well.
In the beginning, there was almost none. And in this country, really almost none for the first. You understand, it wasn't just these cases. It was the whole country. I mean, if you said anything to say, well, why did 9/11 happen? If you even said, maybe we ought to look at who we are and what the world is like. It was a kill out there. I mean, you
you couldn't say that.
Put your head above water.
Well, even poor Richard Gere, when he tried to give a little Buddhist message of forgiveness and love at the concert in New York, he was booed off the stage. Very popular actor.
So really tough stuff here.